Republicans show once again that the reason we don't have bipartisanship in Washington is not because the two parties can't get along, but because Republicans are the problem. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel and click this little bell that notifies you when I post something new. So 2 news items today pointed out that Republicans are the reason we don't have bipartisanship in Washington. There's no both sides argument here where, one side does this and the other side does that. No, the problem are Republicans. And let's talk about it. The first news item, and as always, I'll post links to the news items below. The first news item involves the infrastructure deal. Now, supposedly, there was a deal where the Democrats and Republicans had come together and agreed to about $600 billion in infrastructure funding, including ways to finance it with no increases in taxes, supposedly. This was a deal championed by Senator Joe Manchin, the Democrats' bipartisan problem child, and cheered on by Kyrsten Sinema, as well as President Joe Biden, by the way. Calling it an example of what was able to be done when the parties worked together. Well, the truth is, there wasn't very much in this deal that wasn't already included in what the Democrats planned to pass on their own. But hey, if it makes Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema happy to say that, we're being bipartisan by passing part of this package in a way that includes some Republicans, well, so be it. The problem with this deal, and I pointed it out when it was first announced, is that although 10 senators agreed to it, it did not include 10 Republican senators. Now, as we know under the filibuster rules, you need to get 10 Republican senators to support something before it is able to be approved without the filibuster becoming an issue. So even though this infrastructure deal was supposedly a bipartisan deal, it really wasn't a bipartisan deal until the Republican senators had managed to get several more of their Republican colleagues on board. Well, now it turns out, and it's becoming increasingly evident, that the Republicans can't get their colleagues on board, not even for something that involves spending on infrastructure without any increase in taxes. I mean, who's against that? You get infrastructure, you don't pay more for it. It's like getting candy without having to worry about the calories. But even worse than the fact that the Republicans can't get on board 10 of their members is the fact that now Republicans who'd even agree to this deal, as Joe Biden shook hands on it, are now backing away from the deal at all. How can you ever negotiate with somebody who, once you have a deal, shake hands on it and agree to it publicly, suddenly starts backing away from it? The point is you can't. This is an example of what lawyers call bad faith negotiating. In other words, you're not really negotiating with the intent to try to get the job done. You're negotiating to create some kind of impression that you're negotiating, but ultimately you're not going to agree to what you negotiate in the first place. So to anyone who says that Democrats are partially responsible for the lack of bipartisanship in Washington aren't paying attention to this news item. Here is a perfect example of where you have a bipartisan deal negotiated by moderate Democrats and moderate Republicans that Republicans, even after they agree to it, not only can't get a majority of their caucus to agree to it, but that they'll back away from it even after the agreement has been made. And in another example of Republicans striking a blow against bipartisanship, we all know about how Republicans blocked with their filibuster power the creation of a bipartisan independent commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Even though 6 Republicans voted in favor of it and only 35 Republicans voted against it, that still was not enough to get around the filibuster rule. At the time, Joe Manchin expressed frustration with the fact that Republicans could block something with a filibuster like this, and yet he continues to defend the filibuster. Nevertheless, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, showing her usual level of leadership, decided that she was going to go forward and set up a bipartisan commission even without the support of the Senate. Now, granted, such a commission would lack the credibility that would have existed if it were a commission established by statute. Nevertheless, as Nancy Pelosi realized, something is better than nothing. And in fact, to emphasize the fact that this was a bipartisan commission, Nancy Pelosi even appointed Liz Cheney, the daughter of the former Republican Vice President of the United States, to the commission. Liz Cheney, by the way, according to some measures, has better than a 90% voting record on Republican priorities. But yet she dared to tell the truth about what happened on January 6th. Oh my God. Obviously, she needs to be expelled from the personality cult that the Republican Party has become. So who does Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, appoint to this commission? Well, he appoints, for one, Jim Jordan. Now, Jim Jordan, aside from being one of the most partisan Republicans and fiercest defenders of former President Donald Trump, is also the protector of a former Ohio State wrestling coach who is a pedophile. Jim Jordan and two of the other members appointed to this commission voted both against the establishment of the January 6th commission in the first place, voted against impeaching Donald Trump, and voted against approving the election results. In other words, this is a guy who's part of the problem. One of the other appointees, Indiana Congressman Jim Banks, criticized Pelosi by name, claiming that she had created this committee solely to malign conservatives and to justify the left's authoritarian agenda. Now, this sounds like somebody who's going to be giving a serious look at the facts and behaving in a bipartisan way, doesn't it? So once again, Republicans have shown that the problem with bipartisan Washington is not both parties. The problem with bipartisanship in Washington are the Republicans. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments down below. It'd also be a huge help if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.